Good evening. Welcome to the Select Board meeting for Thursday, February 23rd. First item on the agenda is a salute to the American flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Kryzak is not with us this evening, so I will be chairing in his stead, which means, Bill, you are in charge of making the motions. And if you could please, this evening, we have neglected to add Three Rivers Land Trust to our agenda. So on our first item, would you be willing to make a motion to amend our agenda to include Three Rivers Land Trust as our first item?
I make a motion.
So moved?
So moved.
Second, any discussion?
No.
All in favor? Great, thanks, Phil. And now you're on for the minutes of our last meeting.
Okay, approval of the agenda, approval of the minutes of the last meeting.
Yep, I need a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I will second, any discussion? No? All in favor? All right, seeing no old business, moving on to new business, our newly added first agenda item. Mr. Carl Davis, would you like to come join us at the podium?
Just to update you that what our intentions are with the Hobbs Farm is to apply for open space. We will take it up with the board at our March meeting, and if the board is okay with it, then we will apply.
Excellent. You are aware that there is a deadline for open space applications that
April
needs to be
1st.
met? Excellent.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Mr. Cashin, would you like to join us at the podium?
Quick question, when is your next workshop?
Our board meets on Tuesdays from 2 to 4 and Thursdays from 5 till 7. All right, thank you. So I guess actually that should have gone under old business, but we're moving along. It all worked out okay. Next item on the agenda is a resignation from Mary Waterhouse, dated February 21st, 2012, to the Acton Public Access Television Cable Board. It has been my pleasure to have served on the cable board beginning in October 2010 to present. From the beginning, my goal has been to work towards moving forward with Channel 26 and bringing informational programming to the Acton community. With the success of Acton Public Access Television, I can comfortably give my resignation as chairman, along with being a board member effective in March 2012 after the APAT meeting. I wish the board success within all areas, both present and yet to be pursued. May more talented residents join this board to keep APAT top-notch for Acton's viewing area. Sincerely, Mary Waterhouse.
So I make a motion. I make a motion to accept the resignation of Mary Waterhouse.
I will second that with regret. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay. Which brings us to the second item on the agenda, which is the disbanding of the Acton Public Access Television Cable Committee, because we have not been able to get anyone to be on that committee. They now are a committee of 2, and they have agreed that it does not make a lot of sense for them to continue as a committee. That means that our kind of Acton television guru, what is Mike Corey's official title? Do we know?
I don't know what his official title is.
Well, his new official title is Department Head of the Cable Department for the town of Acton. So he has already been submitting budgets and so forth to the Cable Committee for them to approve, and then those budgets go to our board for approval from there. We are simply now going to be taking out the middleman on that, and he will be submitting his budgets directly to the Board of Selectmen for their review and approval or denial if the case may be. Moving on.
Dennis, would you go get me a glass of water, please?
The timeline for the school budget approved by the school, special selectmen's meeting to sign the warrant, will be March 29th, 2012. This is so that we can meet the timeline needed for a vote in April on that school budget.
There is the
Correct.
timeline if you want that,
Okay.
for the other dates.
Paul? Don't trip our warrant and finance committee members, Tom. Really? Come on. Can't we just get along? Man.
Paul Poyant. My question, looking over the timeline this evening, is it expected that the Warrant and Finance will have done their thing in terms of recommendations by the time the selectmen get it on the 29th? or are we going to be doing it after that point? Because it appears that the school committee is releasing it like 2 days prior to that, so there's not a whole lot of wiggle room if in fact you want the recommendations of the warrant and finance at the time you sign it on the 29th.
That is an excellent question. What I'm seeing on
I
the
try.
same thing is final budget meeting with warrant and finance committee is March 27th.
Right, well, based on a question I asked at the last school committee meeting, my understanding of that was that no, that was not going to be giving our recommendations, that was going to be something else. Now,
Well,
I recognize that my understanding could be flawed on either side here, but so far I'm not seeing a bright and shining answer.
Well, let me give you my understanding of the role of the Warrant and Finance Committee, which I think is always up for debate. 'Cause
Okay.
The Warrant and so the school board is going to say, this is our budget, here you go. And the Warrant and Finance Committee's responsibility is to make recommendations to the people at town meeting, not to the school board. So the school board will have
correct.
given you a budget, and then what you do with it as far as your recommendations from there they don't concern them. So,
Understood, but when are our official recordings of our committee recommendation for the school budget going to be logged? I mean, is it prior to your signing or after?
we
I
can
understand
sign the
It probably
warrant.
doesn't matter
It
either
doesn't,
way, really.
if I'm remembering correctly, and Lorraine, please feel free to step in on this at any time. We will sign the warrant for it to be posted to meet the deadlines required. But it does not need to have your recommendation on it at the time that we sign it. Am I correct that the Warrant and Finance Committee recommendation need not be on the warrant at the time of signing?
I would think it needs to be on there at the time of signing, because you have posted it. Once you post it, you want the warrant and finance
I think we're going to have
recommendation
another bit of input here. May I call on Ms. Rue? Want to, sorry, but would you be willing?
Do I understand the question is, does the warrant and finance recommendations have to be on the warrant when it's posted?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We're talking about the school budget?
Yes.
Yes. So when it gets posted after that March 30th, your meeting on March 29th?
Yes.
It has to be posted the next day to meet the guidelines for those 2 election days in April. It needs to be completely done, recommendations and all.
But we have in the past had a recommendation made on the floor at one of these meetings.
I mean, you could essentially type in, not available at the time of posting, but it really hasn't been past practice. I mean, they're supposed to be done. Is the concern that the warrant and finance won't be completed?
They won't have gotten the budget until the 27th. And so for
They-
them to make a recommendation for us to post it on the 30th is rushing a bit, is their concern.
That's my impression.
Then, I guess the only other possibility is, I mean, the recommendations have always been on the warrant. Like Lorraine's saying, they absolutely have always been on there. You could, if they need more time, you could push the election dates back. I mean, there's nothing that says it has to be the 10th and 17th. Those dates came from the school committee's request, so we did a timeline based on their last meeting. But our understanding was, when we got the draft, that the warrant and finance was going to be done as well by...
The process as it's unfolding right now for the individual sections of the budget certainly seems slower than it perhaps needs to be. So maybe that can be goosed a little bit so that we can buy a day or two in the middle
And
there.
even if, the only other thing I was thinking is if they're not, if the warrant and finance recommendations aren't on the warrant on March 30th when we post it, essentially the budget hearing is April 10th, less than a week and a half away. So that little bit of time may not make a difference for the warrant and finance to even complete it. Because, at town meeting on the April 10th is when people are going to want to know the recommendations. So that may not even be enough time to make a difference. Maybe you need to push both dates back to give them more time.
And that is this board's choice.
That is your board's choice, correct?
What's the reason that the warrant and finance committee won't have the budget before then?
Because according to the school board, the school board has sent us a timeline. And the school board's timeline is that they will have their budget complete March 27th.
Do you have that timeline? Is that the date?
Yes.
That's
This is,
But until tonight, that
right.
29th date, it was always to be determined. Until tonight, that 29th date was just.
right.
Won't you be having hearings
But now
with
it's-
them as
Oh, yeah,
you
I
have
mean,
other years?
I would say it's going to be pretty perfunctory for us to know by that time what we're going to individually vote.
well, could you
But
then have your
In
vote?
order to actually do it and have the meeting and have it scheduled and have those votes recorded, That's what we're discussing here.
Why doesn't the Warrant and Finance Committee have a meeting to follow the school board meeting on the 27th? We can make sure that you have a secretary present to record the votes, make your votes that evening. The, cable channel and so forth will already be present. We can ask them to stay and just follow that, have a meeting at the school that follows directly after the school board meeting. Then you guys will have your official recommendations on the warrant that we sign 2 days later.
Seems like a reasonable solution.
That work for you, Bill?
Oh, fine.
For the moment, we'll go with that and see how it happens.
Okay, and if you talk to your fellow board members and they say no, then we can come back and we can push off the election to be the 17th and the 24th instead.
Well, it would be.
Thank you, Jen.
To have to push the other dates for something,
But we haven't advertised those or anything.
Right.
So it's really not a big deal. I mean, that's just in-house at this point.
This is the time to make those changes. Okay, thanks, Jen, appreciate that.
The other thing that I want to ask on the timeline, not the school's budget, but on ours, are you going to make the list of the timeline, or is the Warrant and Finance going to come and make the list? I need to notify the social service agencies when they're to come and present their cases, but there's no date's been set at all yet.
Is there, I'm going to perhaps commit heresy here. Is there a reason why those social services donations people have to come and plead their case? I mean, they send us huge packets. They're the same people every year. We know what York County Community Action does. We know, why do they need to come every year for 3 hours and present their pleas for their $250 donation?
First of all, my deep knowledge of this comes from one season, so, that's where this is coming from. My general understanding is that it's a wonderful thing if somebody wants a donation, if they take the time out to present their case, given that perhaps there are other agencies that do not come to present their case that perhaps don't fare so well at town meeting. Last year, I know there were a couple who were not here but did receive donations anyway. I don't think it's necessarily a hard and fast rule, but I hope that we wouldn't get into a position where we're basically saying, here's a list of stuff, here's a list of people requesting donations, and we're going to hopefully rely on them sending us a packet, because we don't necessarily have the statement that we have the information from all of those agencies each year, or at least last year was not the case. I mean,
Okay.
we received some materials on that night, recognizing that if they didn't have to show up in person, perhaps they would have mailed materials. And so I would say it's not a hard and fast rule that they have to show up. We'll call it an act of good faith on their part, to invoke an act of good faith on our part, to consider it to be a worthy request, and to recommend honoring it at town meeting.
Okay,
So, not written in stone.
it just seems
Mutable.
inefficient.
It's, last year, in fact, we actually had one agency that ended up having to show up at a later meeting when we were doing some presentations for a town budget, just because we were there and they had not been able to be there at the same night. And I understand that some of these agencies have requests for multiple towns, perhaps conflicting meetings. From their point of view, yes, I agree that there may be some inefficiencies there. From my perspective, I wouldn't say that we, certainly last year, did not require that somebody show to present their case in order to receive a donation, but I'm thinking that it's probably a good practice.
Okay.
And if they aren't here at that meeting, it could go either way.
Well, I think I'd say that last year's Warrant and Finance Committee was more generous in going with all of these and accepting what they did. In the past, these agencies have had to justify the amount that they were asking for. The Warrant and Finance Committee would cross-examine them to make sure that they justified their what they were asking for.
Right, and certainly
in services to the town of Acton.
Certainly, if they were going to increase the donation request from what had been done in the past, without materials to back it up one way or another, either verbally or with some kind of materials that substantiate why an increase is justified, then I wouldn't think that that would happen either. So in that case, it's possible that either there would be no donation or it would be reduced to some
As a
number that
recommendation
was
on the warrant.
deemed, right, that was deemed to be, best. And obviously, regardless of what the Warrant and Finance Committee thinks, it's what's happening on the town floor that's really going to
I've
make the
received
difference.
all the requests, so I've got all the dollar amounts that are being requested. And if you decide you don't want to bother to meet with them, that's fine.
I think that I'm understanding from Paul that he would like to meet with them, and so in the spirit of my previous heresy, I will recant, and we'll come up with a timeline for that.
I don't necessarily think I'm comfortable enough in what should be and what I think should be to necessarily make these sweeping changes in the course of a year or 2 years. But I would certainly welcome having those materials passed along, and perhaps we can have another discussion on this before scheduling such a meeting.
Well, is it possible for the Warrant and Finance Committee to come to a Thursday night board meeting about, and let us have a joint meeting so that there's just the one presentation? I think we did this last year.
We did, yes.
Have the one presentation, our secretary is already present to make any notes and so forth
Right.
that need to happen.
Well, that's what we did last year, and it's efficient. Why have two or more presentations? That just didn't make any sense. So we did have a common meeting last year. I think it worked out really well.
Okay.
Whether we're going to further make that more efficient this year by essentially omitting the presentation stage, at this moment, I'm not necessarily in favor of that, but if somebody's got a compelling argument, I'm certainly willing to listen.
No, let's not omit, but hold on. Sophia, honey, can you go ask Jennifer what date we need to post our warrant in order to make the town meeting date? Because I'm thinking if we need to, I think that we probably need to post our warrant end of April, would be my guess. And or is it end of May? When do,
Well, it would be, it's just 7 days before town meeting when we post.
is it that late?
Yeah.
But we usually try to have it out prior to that so that people have
Well-
time to read the warrant before town meeting.
We usually put the warrant together, and we have meetings with the Warrant and Finance Committee and meetings with the different departments, and
When are those town budgetary meetings going to be starting? Is it gonna
Budgets
be
are due
overlap
to
with the
us by
school, or-
tomorrow, so, Ms. Rue?
Yes.
What date did we decide that we needed to have our warrant ready to go, to be signed off on?
April 27th,
I thought
because
so.
that's the deadline for any petitions that would be submitted as well. So the board's thought was that that would give the Warren and Finance the entire month of May to,
Okay, so are we thinking that therefore we want to have department heads and donation requests petitioners come and do their thing for the warrant and finance and the select board in March or April or,
my understanding was it was gonna be May. I mean,
okay,
but-
so you want the warrant together full and then we have, I
Wouldn't all of those meetings, I'm pretty sure last year that all took place before,
thought so
Well,
too.
it's gonna depend
The
on
warrant
how-
was pre- I mean, was
So
presented.
the budgets are due this Friday. So it's gonna depend on how quickly the Board of Selectmen can put their warrant together. If the budgets are due on Friday and next Tuesday they have it all inputted into the system, and let's say by next Thursday their warrant is done, the only thing that could possibly change that is a petition up until April 27th. That's why, the understanding was that you guys were gonna continue to tweak it and work on it through April 27th. Because you didn't want Warren and Finance to keep getting different drafts.
We certainly do not.
and I think we're talking about two different things, though. Earlier, we were talking about warrant and finance recommendations for the school
Right,
warrants.
Right.
I think you're talking about the warrant and finance recommendations for the town warrant,
Is that
but
what
here
we're
we're
talking
talking about input into the budgetary formation process that will go into the warrant articles. So
Well,
at
yes
least
and-
that's what I'm talking about. I'm
Yes
hoping
and
that's what
no.
you're talking
I
about.
believe that our board has agreed that requests will be put onto the warrant. So
submitted.
if a department or a donation request comes forward, it's going to be put onto the warrant as
Of the
submitted.
budget itself.
That's department requests, department.
Okay.
So the budget requests that we are receiving in our office by tomorrow from all departments within the town, we as a board are going to put those on the warrant. It is simply a question of the two lines underneath there. Warrant and Finance Committee recommends, Select Board recommends. So if we have all of those requests into us by the end of February, is it fair to say that we would have a warrant completed within reason by end of March, But we could be having the department heads come in and present their budgets throughout March and April.
Right.
And then a recommendation could be made by the Warrant and Finance Committee at their leisure sometime April, beginning
Right,
of May.
but the point is that we would have those materials available to us already. We'll know what goes into those numbers that we're going to see on the warrant.
Right.
And we're going to be able to, make some type of a judgment on those numbers because we've seen
Right.
what makes them up.
So presentations from department heads, not warrants, we're not putting out drafts of warrants,
Right.
but presentations from department heads and from petitioners for donations could start next month.
That's my understanding.
Okay, so why don't we, Lorraine asked us about a timeline. So if we're going to do that, what do you think about having those, let's get those departments starting. Our next meeting in March is what? It's going to be what, the 8th? I think March, it is. It's March 8th is our first meeting in March. No, we're second, yeah, that's the second Tuesday. And then it would be the 8th, then the 22nd. So if we were to ask, probably the 8th is too early to ask people to come forward, maybe, but the 22nd, certainly, we could expect to have our first round. Could you contact your board members and see if they're available on the 22nd?
So the department heads are going to present at a Board of Selectmen's meeting to both of you at the same time?
Yes.
And would that be all of them or some subset? Like, I think we did 2, maybe 3 meetings
I think so, too.
last year
Yep.
for that purpose.
So we could let us talk as a full board on Tuesday and come up with that schedule with the understanding that by the end of next week, we will have a schedule ready to go to Lorraine and to the Warrant and Finance Committee and to Jennifer to distribute to the department heads about when we would expect to, have that conversation.
Okay, and that's going to be the town budgets, not necessarily the donation items. That's still,
The donation items, I think, would be included in that, and we would ask for them to maybe come.
Well, if you want to set a date, for this and because you've got a fairly good list of donation people to come. So, rather than do it with the road committee or something, the road people like that, it's more sensible to have just your
Right.
donations.
it's going to
at
take a
one
while.
meeting.
So.
It's going to be a full meeting,
Yep.
or a full workshop.
So we could do that, and so that would give us the 8th, the 22nd, whatever that first meeting in April would be, and that would give us 3 meetings. So if there was a department head that was comfortable coming and doing it on the 8th, we could start doing that now. Does that sound?
I'm sure in-house we could present on the 8th, we're all done.
And you're talking April? 8th?
March 8th.
8th, okay, so the first workshop will be on March 8th, okay.
Right.
Sounds like a plan, okay. And the rest of it can unfold according to how it's worked out at your next workshop or meeting, or...
So on Tuesday, we'll come up with that schedule as a full board. It doesn't seem quite right for Bill and I to do that just on our own. So next Tuesday, we'll do that as a full board, and we'll come up with a definite schedule and put it out there.
Okay,
All right?
thank you.
Anything else about that, Bill?
No, it's fine.
Okay, shall we do some abatements?
Sure.
Yeah,
Where are they?
they're right here. All right. Let's start off with the denials, and then we'll move on to the approvals.
Okay.
Okay. Dear Michael Camello, the Town of Acton has reviewed the 2011-2012 assessed value of your Acton property. I'm going to read one cover letter, as they are matching cover letters for the denials written by our assessing agent, so that we are not reading duplicates. As a result of our review, we have denied your abatement request. A successful tax abatement request must demonstrate that the property has been overvalued relative to other properties. The burden of proof is on the applicant to show that the valuation is unfair. The presumption is that the assessment is valid. The abatement process is intended to correct substantial overvaluation. The case law goes so far as to say the assessment must be, quote, manifestly wrong, unquote, and there must be, quote, unjust discrimination, unquote. In a review of your assessment, we concluded that the value was not manifestly wrong, nor have you been discriminated against when compared to other similar properties. The property has been valued proportionally and equitably relative to other properties within Acton. To ensure that your property was being treated equitably relative to other properties within the community, we conducted a field inspection on February 8th, 2012, to double-check the characteristics of the property. The inspection confirmed that the characteristics of your frontage have been measured equitably relative to other properties. The property has an adjustment that is intended to recognize the limitations of your frontage. The information you provided about your listing and broker opinion of value support the current valuation. Okay. Second one is Dear Norman and Donna Michaud. Again, same letter. Town of Acton has reviewed the 2011-2012 assessed value of your Acton property. As a result of our review, we have denied your abatement request. Do you want to move on the denials first?
Denials? Oh, yeah.
Yep. Do you want to make a motion that we deny?
Do you make the motion, or do you want me to?
I need you to make the motion.
I make a motion that we deny the tax abatement request of Norman Michaud and Donna J. Michaud.
Okay. And you want to do the second one at the same time?
Oh, okay. And I make a motion that we deny the request of Michael Camilio.
I will second that. Any discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, and then there are signatures required. Lorraine, where's our signature page? Right here.
They were in there, so I didn't get them pulled out.
Okay.
Look through Donna's, found that one too.
Oh, Donna's in here?
This is this one right here. Right, this one's all set.
All right, so it's not there, okay.
So it's in this one. Lorraine, I neglected to check the denied box on that one. Can you check off that box, please? Thank you. Okay. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? For now, for the tax abatements that have been approved. For map and lot 236-005-003, Dear Dennis and Catherine Long, Town of Acton has reviewed the 2011 assessed value of your Acton property. As a result of our review, we have granted an abatement on Acton map lot 236-005-003. The reason for the abatement is to recognize resource protection classification, the base lot was removed. We, the Acton Board of Assessors, have approved a tax abatement for $25,500 in valuation and $279.23 in tax dollars on real estate. Dear Dennis and Gail Long, Town of Acton has reviewed the 2011 assessed value of your Acton property. As a result of our review, we have granted an abatement on Acton map lot 236002. The reason for the abatement is to recognize resource protection classification, the base lot was removed. We, the Acton Board of Assessors, have approved a tax abatement for $25,500 in valuation and $279.23 in tax dollars on real estate. Dear
I haven't made the motion yet.
Dear Mountain View Shores Association, Town of Acton has reviewed the 2011 assessed value on your Acton property. As a result of our review, we have granted an abatement on Acton map and lot 131044. The reasons for the abatement are, the parcel is a common lot with value inherent in valuation of other properties. We, the Acton Board of Assessors, have approved a tax abatement for $47,750 in valuation and $522.86 in tax dollars on real estate. Dear James Webb, Town of Acton has reviewed the 2011 assessed value on your Acton property. As a result of our review, we have granted an abatement on Acton map and lot 256040. We, the Acton Board of Assessors, have approved a tax abatement for $12,817 in valuation and $140.35 in tax dollars on real estate. Dear Charles and Arlene Wills, We, as a result of our review, we have granted an abatement on Acton Map and Lot 108004. For the following reasons. The land value was adjusted to reflect site improvements at grade 2. The tennis court grade and condition were corrected. We, the Acton Board of Assessors, have approved a tax abatement for $20,053 in valuation and $219.58 in tax dollars on real estate.
Okay, can I move to accept all five, or do I have to?
I think you could do that, yes. That seems efficient, Bill.
Okay, I move that we approve the abatements, all five abatements that Larissa just read.
I will second. Any discussion? All in favor? Excellent.
Now we can sign them.
Now we can sign them. Oh, Lorraine, will you go through and fill in the dollar amounts of the abatements?
Okay.
All I have is the taxes abated, not the dollar amount of the actual abatement. In front of me, they're in, so I don't have like the 25,500 part. I have the tax dollars.
What? We're gonna do them after the sign.
Do you see what I'm saying? The line up there.
And if you fill out the book, too.
You gotta sign those too.
Maybe while everyone is sitting here watching us sign, we could comment on these lovely tables that were purchased at the recommendation of Claire Bragg, who did some research for us.
The senior citizens have 2 meetings a month here. One is a luncheon meeting, and one is just a coffee and conversation meeting. And the ladies that come set up are in their 80s, and they had difficulty lifting those big tables to set them up. So they approached the selectmen and asked them if they could buy some lighter weight ones. And these are collapsible. I don't know where the stack.
They're right here.
Yeah, you can see how they're just like a suitcase almost. They fold right up. But they're very lightweight. So the ladies can set the tables up. We have, this is the group we call the Owls, the older liberated
Oh, they're
seniors.
wiser.
Liberated seniors. And we have 40 or 50 each month that come. Conversation used to be 12 or 14. We had it yesterday, and the place is packed.
32, 33 people.
Yeah, and they come here and they talk. They have coffee and they have donuts or cake or something to go with the coffee, but they just talk. And this is, I think, such a bonus to the town to have this type of thing, because it gives them an excuse to get up, get dressed, go out into the public and be with people and talk. And this is one of the things I think the senior citizens really, and older people need. They need the time, they need someone to listen to them talk. And it's very good, and we have a very active, good group.
We do, and special thanks to, let's call Claire out on this one and say thanks to Claire for she does all of our phone calling to make sure that people know to get out and finding these tables for us. We started this group 2 years ago next month. Will actually be our second anniversary of the first luncheon that was pulled together, and it has been great.
It has, and it has grown. We have people from Shapley that join us also. It's not just Acton people. they're looking for a reason to gather, and it's wonderful, really is.
It is. It's been great. We love the owls. Thanks, Lorraine. Okay, any other business? Seeing none. Bill, you want to hit us with our announcements?
Sure.
Oh, no,
Oop.
because we just disbanded.
Oh. So there's only one announcement, and that's that there's an alternate member of the Board of Assessment Review required. So anybody that wants to volunteer for that, you'll be welcome.
Yes, indeed.
That is about the only announcement, I think.
Okay, and I'm just going to toss out for the announcements again. Next Wednesday is toddler and preschoolers moving their bodies from 9:30 to 10 in the fitness center and doing crafts and reading a story with Mary Waterhouse in the library from 10 until 10:30. And then the following Wednesday, as Lorraine mentioned, is the Owls. If you are a person who is either a senior, or I'm going to borrow from Bill Lotz, or thinking about being one someday, please come and join us at 12 o'clock here at the Town Hall. I believe that I was requested to make baked beans and hot dogs this month. So I believe that that is what we'll be having, is I, take requests and honor them. So I think we're having baked beans and brown bread and hot dogs.
And there is no charge.
No.
There is a basket put on the table that people can put a donation in, and they do. But there is no charge as such for the meal. You just come and eat and drop something into the donation basket.
And really, we have some people that, some months they might drop $1 in, some months drop $2, and a lot of them don't drop something at all if they don't have it, and that's fine. I was rather emphatic on this point. It needs to be available for anyone, free of cost. I had 2 excellent Yankee grandmothers, and they would have stayed home and had a 25-cent sandwich by themselves and been lonely rather than pay to go to a luncheon. So it is, people that don't have the money to spend, come and share your conversation instead, and that is equally valuable, and we like that. And we always try to send people home with stuff, too.
That's true.
So you not only get to eat one lunch, you get to take things home and eat again.
This is one of the things that the state is concerned about, is that many people are not eating properly. And that's because either they live alone, it's too much an effort to put on a whole meal or get something ready, so they just eat something. And so we have a lot of people that are not having what they should have. And while we don't go through a nutritional study for our meal, we always have a wide range of food, so there's always plenty of good food available.
Yep. So, excellent. Thanks, Lorraine.
Okay.
All right. Want to make a motion to get us on out of here?
Well, I make a motion, we adjourn the Selectmen's meeting for today.
I will second that. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Adjourned.
Okay, you could.